So how do you talk about your research before you really have a research project? So I'm thinking of, you know, a second week of your first year of your PhD where you go around the table and introduce yourself. Maybe the first week of your first, I don't know, required course for grad school, and everybody is introducing themselves and what I work on, I work on, I work on. What do you work on? Da, 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 da. That's really awkward because the basic fact of the matter is that you have absolutely no frickin' idea what you're working on. Even if you think you know what you're working on, you have no frickin' idea what you're working on. And yet, what do you work on? 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 What do you work on is a constant question you're going to be hearing. Now, I can't give you the answer for that question because obviously I don't know what you are working on. I'm looking at a lens right now. But what I want to give you is a kind of two-column, a mental document that I would like you to imagine in your mind and then follow along. In one column is all of the things that you think that question means. All of the things that you think you're trying to achieve in answering that question. And the other column is everything that you really are answering with that question, or you should really be answering with that question, okay? What you think that question means and what it really means or what you really want it to mean. Okay, so what chances are do you, or maybe I shouldn't pick on you, but what many of us think that that question means? Well, the first thing is answering a question like that makes a person feel really put together. Like they know what's going on, they're with it, they're like aware, they're solid, it's happening. That's total bullshit, but we like to feel when we're in a room of incredibly smart people who got into this program with me that I am, I'm with it, I know what I'm doing. And so one thing that we think we're doing when we answer that question is conveying a sense of that. That's one thing we think we're doing. That's not what we're doing, but we'll come back to that. The second thing is that we are so stuck in the phase that preceded this moment. So now you're admitted to the program. You're in the program. You've got funding. Like your program is sending checks and you can walk around and say, I'm a graduate, I'm a PhD student, I'm an MA student, wherever. But it's easy to get stuck in the previous phase of application when it was uncertain, when your destiny was in the hands of an application committee. And to get stuck in that phase and to, in essence, keep applying. Like you get into the program, but you're so stressed that you keep applying to the program in every conversation that you have, if that makes sense. You try to impress people. You try to get people to admit you, but you've already been admitted. You're already in the program. One thinks that that's the goal of answering the question, what do you work on at this early stage? But in fact, it's not. Because you've already been admitted, there is no need to reapply in some sort of existential sense. Okay, what else is this answer? Well, another thing that we think this answer is the truth. By which I mean is, it is very possible in the first week of one's first semester or quarter of grad school to truly believe that they know exactly what it is that they're working on, and this is just a plain statement of fact. Okay, now unfortunately, but also fortunately, it is none of these things. You don't need to reapply to a program that's already admitted you. You don't need to convince anybody you're smart. You don't need to be readmitted. You don't, as much as you think you do, need to pretend to be all put together because you're going to be in the presence of people who know you're not put together, who know you're in the early stages. When I meet a first weak PhD who tries to overexpress their confidence, it's a little bit like when I used to wear, big jackets and pretend to do things. That's kind of, I want to be honest. That's a little bit what it looks like. It looks immature. It's not a bad thing. It's an understandable thing, but it's transparent. It's obvious what's going on. So that's not what it's about either. And then of course, if you truly know what your dissertation is going to be on day one of your program, I'm going to say something very controversial here. Chances are your dissertation is going to suck, or it's going to be sort of really, really superficial or obvious. If you have figured it out that fast, to me, that means that chances are it's going to lack depth. Now, chances are much, much higher that even if you think you know exactly what it is on day one, if you allow yourself to be vulnerable in the way that you have to as a scholar, it is going to evolve and break and change and get stronger and get more non-obvious and get more subtle. Now, what is that question really about? Or basically, this is an invitation to rethink how to answer that question and a few different concrete strategies on how to do that. One is when you convey to your instructors, to other faculty, to other colleagues, and I mean graduate student colleagues, when they ask you, what do you work on? What you really want them to give you in return, something that would really be useful, are recommendations. Course recommendations. You work on something related to that. Oh, you should really look into so-and-so's course on blah, blah, blah. Source recommendations. Oh, cool. So you work on that. Have you taken a look at, actually, there's this, like our university has a subscription to the blah, blah, blah database, and you can actually get that. Or actually, we have the papers of so-and-so here. I don't know if you knew that, but you might want to take a look. Scholar recommendations. Wow, I didn't know you worked on that. That's great. Do you know so-and-so over in economics? Oh, you don't? Oh my gosh. Or do you know there's a postdoc visiting or a visiting scholar or a grad student over there? Oh, you should definitely look them up. Those three things, sources, courses, and scholars, that is actually valuable to you, to your evolution as a scholar, to your community formation as a grad student. That's what you want. So if you, ironically, give this perfect performance of what I work on, it's like this impervious, perfectly polished, unassailably intelligent sounding shell, ironically, in the total lack of vulnerability that this perfect answer offers, you might get fewer of these recommendations from your colleagues. They might look and say, well, shit, she's so put together. She knows everything. Like, I have nothing to offer this person. It would be insulting if I were to make a recommendation to someone as perfect as this person is already. So clearly they already know about these courses. They already know about these sources. They already know about these scholars. Who am I to make a recommendation about something else? And in truth, that person, when they go back to their apartment, is shivering in the same kind of insecurity intellectually that all of us have at every early stage of every project for the rest of our career. So ironically, in being invulnerable, we get less of the help that we need at this stage. Another thing that we want in the answer we give, what do you work on at this early stage, by which I mean like the opening weeks of one's graduate program, the first year of one's graduate program, you want to build in escape pods, back doors, trap doors, safe rooms. This is my advice. You want to build into your explanation of your research flexibility, because there is a 7 out of 8 chance, a 99 out of 100 chance that your research will morph, change, evolve. I can't think of a single person I've worked with whose dissertation matched what they thought they were going to do in the first week of grad school. Not a single person. Not a single one. So if they were doctrinal and really confident and perfectly invulnerably polished, then what's going to happen? They're going to convey themselves that way to everybody they meet, and everybody they meet is going to economize that person, like create a shortcut in their mind for who that person is and what they work on, and be like, oh yeah, I met so-and-so the other day. Oh, they're the blah, blah, blah person, right? They work on blah, 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 right? They work on blah, blah, blah. And suddenly you start to sort of infuse or populate the kind of understanding of you with something that in 2 months' time, in 2 weeks' time, and certainly 2 years' time, could change fundamentally. So as vulnerable as it sounds, as scary as it sounds, it is a better strategy, in my view, to build explicitly into your answer, what do you work on? Vulnerability, uncertainty. The areas that I'm interested in, broadly speaking, are this. Thus far, I've been really focused on this, but I'm in the midst of exploring. Generally speaking, my work thus far has been on an insert case study here. And generally, I'm interested in the intersections of blah and blah, but I'm still trying to keep an open mind. Something that conveys explicitly that you are evolving. because you are. And there's no point in hiding that. And no one around you expects you not to evolve. Nobody expects you not to evolve. They would, by contrast, be scared if you didn't evolve. Certainly if they're faculty, they will be scared if you don't evolve, if you don't change in some sort of way. And the funny thing, and I'll just end this tutorial here, is in the same way that you don't need to reapply to a program you've already been admitted to convince whoever's leading your required course as a first year that you're smart enough to be here, to again, try to be readmitted. Everybody around that table feels that anxiety. Every single one. If they don't, they're probably a jerk, But every sort of reasonably down-to-earth person is thinking, how did I get in here? I'm a fraud. I'm an imposter. I'm unintelligent. I can't cut it. Look at these people. They're amazing. Everybody's feeling that way. And if one or two or three people can be brave enough, they don't have to say as much, but one or two or three people can be brave enough to say, I'm not really sure. I'm uncertain. These are the general areas. They will respect that and also feel relief. You will be helping them if you open up in that way, because every single one of them is feeling that way. And maybe, just maybe, everybody in the room will start to let their guards down and form a real, vulnerable, intellectual community. And that, my friends, is a cohort. That's the definition, in my view, of a cohort. I'll see you in the next tutorial.